As many of you know by now, Titanfall 2 randomly received an update, fixing the servers and allowing for people to finally play the game again. On top of that, in Apex Legends patch notes, there were these 3 codes that all match with the release dates of Titanfall, Titanfall 2, and Apex Legends. Why would Respawn just randomly decide to add these codes unless there was something bigger happening behind the scenes? That's probably major hopium, but regardless, there's a ton of hype around Titanfall 2. And if Respawn wanted to capitalize on the hype, they should finally release a sequel to this underrated game, Titanfall 3. But I do think in order to help ensure that Titanfall 3 is a success, Respawn would need to implement some big changes to the game, and luckily, I'm here to give my expert opinion on how to create the best possible Titanfall 3 experience. Obviously, I'm not actually an expert, so Respawn devs can and probably will just ignore me completely, but I'm still going to give my idea because maybe they'll like some parts of it. So, without further ado, here is my pitch for Titanfall 3. I think Titanfall 3's main story should take place years after the events of Titanfall 2. It should star a new pilot, who is being trained by a much older General Sarah Briggs. This game's campaign can be the epic finale and the final assault on the IMC, so that the core systems can finally be free from their reign once and for all. Throughout this story, it will be heavily implied that Jack Cooper disappeared 15 years ago, without a trace of his whereabouts. And then, Jack Cooper will show up later in the campaign, during a mission where you're sent to follow the source of a strange pilot signal, which ends up being Cooper, who went through a wormhole in his quest to find parts of BT. He will have barely aged, as for him, he only left for a few weeks. I feel like these missions could be really cool because you can have a flashback mission where you play as Jack Cooper going through the wormhole and dealing with all those shenanigans. And this will all culminate in a mission where you and him will find the final pieces of BT, as BT holds the key to winning the war, or something important like that. There will also be a ton of other missions all over the galaxy, including the Outlands. And since it takes place years after Titanfall 2, they can easily integrate Apex Legends characters. But wait, before the diehard Titanfall fans get upset, know that this would still ultimately be a Titanfall story, just with some of the Apex characters as side characters. Like, for example, if you have to use teleportation and phase technology, you'll end up teaming up with your universe's Wraith. The characters won't just be randomly shoehorned in or just fan service, but they are in the universe, and some characters, especially Bangalore, Valkyrie, and Revenant, have overarching narratives that tie heavily into big corporations and organizations in the universe. It would be impossible for them to not be involved in some capacity. But yeah, that's the main idea of the campaign, a satisfying conclusion to Titanfall, and tying the Titanfall universe into big overarching plots, like dealing with Eduardo Silva of Hammond Labs, and of course, we could do a huge crossover in the ending, where Jack Cooper finally turns in his card to Blisk and joins the Apex games. Okay, that last one was for me. I'm not a writer, but as long as Jack Cooper and BT make an epic return, it could be incredible. And of course, throughout the campaign, we want to show off all the awesome new abilities and new Titans. The multiplayer is the heart of Titanfall, so we need to ensure that the gameplay is solid and attracts the most players without pushing away fans of the original. The gameplay will still have the bread and butter wall running and double jumping as a standard pilot movement mechanic, but I think each pilot should be equipped with a grappling hook as a standard option, meaning no matter what class you pick, whether it be Cloak, Holopilot, Stim, AWOL, Pulseblade, or Phase, you have a grappling hook with you. However, the grappling hook would be slightly smaller and on 1 cooldown. This way, there's just more of a reason to use the other abilities besides grapple all the time, because in Titanfall 2, let's be honest, it was very hard to compete with the grapple hook. And don't worry, for all the original Titanfall 2 fans, you can completely forego one of these unique second abilities for the original grapple distance. I think it's just a simple way to balance the abilities while also increasing the variety. But on top of the returning abilities, there will also be new abilities introduced. The only abilities I could come up with so far are Engineer, which lets you make shock traps like Watson, Jet, which lets you utilize a new jetpack, and Force, which lets you push back enemies and Titans with like a Star Wars Force type beat, and you can also push yourself up if timed correctly and aimed at the floor. Respawn, we can workshop these, but I do think as long as they're consistently balanced, the multiplayer will be fun as hell. The reason why I called all of these abilities and not classes is because I think we're gonna go all in on letting your pilot be fully customizable, which I'll talk about more later. One of the bigger changes I would make is the time to kill. Let's be honest, it's way too fast. However, we don't want it to be like Apex, where it's a little too slow. It would need to be somewhere in between to keep it fast-paced, but without dying to an alternator in 3 shots. This also means that melees won't be instant kills. they will be 2 hit kills. But we can still let melees from behind be finishers, because finishers are badass. I also think the hipfire would need to be reduced slightly. We wouldn't want it to feel bad, but at the moment there's not really a point to ADSing unless you're running a Kraber. So in exchange, the aim down sight speed for all non-sniper weapons will increase. This will be a buff to assault rifles and LMGs, guns that were never as good as their SMG counterparts in Titanfall 2. Of course, that also means we can expect new weapons to make their debut, as well as new attachments, new grenades, and new pilot ordinances. But of course, you can expect new Titans. Of course, all the original Titans should return, but on top of them, new Titans with whole new kits would be very exciting. I always wish there was a cloak Titan that could go invisible, or a Titan who could create temporary walls that pilots can use as cover or to wall run on, but regardless of what they add, new Titans need to be added for Titanfall 3 to succeed. And we would also need to see new Titans added even post-launch. And for an extra movement mechanic, I would want it so that friendly Titans can throw teammates and their own pilots for tactical pushes. Kind of like how BT throws you in the campaign. I think that can add so many cool trick shots and skill jumps that would just up the Titan pilot gameplay. When it comes to the maps, the game will launch with most of the original maps returning, at least the fan favorites, and a ton of new maps designed after the campaign, with a wide variety of biomes and ways to traverse maps. There should be bigger maps for main game modes and the smaller maps for the pilot game modes as well. I also think Titanfall would benefit greatly from a map maker. If it's anywhere on the level of Halo Infinite, Titanfall 3 can see never-ending longevity, as fans can make super unique and fun maps to play on, like maps from other games or just goofy maps where you're in a kid's playroom and the Titans and pilots are toy-sized. I believe that the gunplay and movement will be so good foundationally that the only thing that can hold back the game is the maps feeling stale after a while, so custom maps can solve the issue in terms of longevity. As for game modes, all the best game modes will return, and some new game modes should make an appearance. For starters, gun game is a no-brainer, but I also think a Titan gun game would be a ton of fun, especially if there's a lot more Titans. The North Star client created one of my personal favorite games, Fastball, and this game mode would just be perfect to see implemented officially. If Respawn wanted an esports scene, Fastball could be their ticket to high-octane, high-skill gameplay. Other modes like Infection and other goofy modes like the Titan Weapons game mode that existed in North Star should also be included, even if they're just limited time modes during seasonal events. And don't worry, for all the Titanfall 1 and 2 fans, there will be a mode called Hardcore Mode that plays like the original Titanfall with very fast time to kill, but the hipfire will still be nerfed, so you need a little bit more skill, but you don't care, you're just gonna use the Kraber anyways. I think what can keep this game thriving is owning the fact that people like the high-skilled movement and gunplay. So I think Respawn should really go in on the competitive side with a ranked mode on launch and tournaments hosted by Respawn. Titanfall 2 never got a chance to have an esports scene, but pro Titanfall players could be so hyped to see, especially if they have a great custom match mode and spectator feature. If Titanfall 2 had a spectator mode, I'd host tournaments for the game right now. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. There's 2 ways we can approach Titanfall 3 on the monetization side. We can either sell it at $60 with campaign and everything included, with DLC being added over time that may or may not be paid for. Or, and this is probably what EA and Respawn would realistically do, they sell the campaign separately for like $30 and they let the multiplayer be free to play with cosmetics for sale. But in exchange, all DLC and updates would be free. It would be a full-on live service game. These updates would add new maps, new Titans, and even new classes, all for free. And this is why each pilot would be extremely customizable. You can change the visor color, you can change the way that their armor looks. This would all be in an effort to help make every single pilot feel unique, while simultaneously making money. I don't love that option, but at the same time, if it's free with crossplay and cross progression, this could be an extremely wild hit. People would be playing this game on every console and PC and find lobbies pretty easily. There is a third option, where this entire game is still tied to Apex as a separate game mode. And from a monetization standpoint, this could work. You could add Titanfall cosmetics as part of the battle pass that's already in Apex, but it might be overwhelming for players and a turnoff for many as well. So I personally think it's best to keep them separated. I still think that even if it is a free-to-play game, there would need to be a sense of progression in unlocking weapons and Titans still, with the full-on prestige system like before and cool cosmetics only only for people who play religiously. We're talking unique cosmetics that are only given to players who have completed like every challenge, such as armor effects that are never sold, or gold weapons for maxing out the rank of weapons. I also want the free-to-play experience to be very enjoyable. There would be a system where you can unlock credits, meaning there should be a free way to unlock some credits. Respawn's obviously gotta make money, but we're just talking like a simple credit system that you unlock over time. That is my pitch for Titanfall 3. I really don't think they need to reinvent the wheel, but with key changes like balancing the gunplay and consistently patching and updating the game, Titanfall 3 has the potential to create a fun experience that is both exciting for newcomers and rewarding for players who want to go deep into the game or are just fans of Titanfall already. I've talked about it before in a previous video, but I think we are ready for a movement shooter. Now would be the time to strike. Apex Legends is hot, but it's cooling down. People are tired of battle royales like Warzone or bored of Fortnite, and tactical shooters don't have the flair and style that people are craving. Titanfall 3 can not only be a hit, but it could be a game built for longevity that can withstand the test of time. It can be the next big thing if done correctly, and I think EA would be wise to at least consider revisiting this incredible franchise. Trust me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you later.